so great to see you. If it's 5 o'clock on Wednesday, it means it's Let's Talk Personal, which means I am your host, Frances Reimers. I am so excited to see you guys. A week off feels like an eternity. I missed you. I hope that you missed me. If you'd like to join today's conversation, and I hope that you do, you can certainly do so on Twitter at LTP Brand Radio or on Instagram at Let's Talk Personal. If you'd like to talk personally to me, and you certainly do, and I love and respond to every single message that I get, you can do so on Instagram at Firestarter CEO or on Twitter at Your Firestarter. So this morning, I leapt out of bed with the energy of a high school track star because I was so super excited for the show today, so super excited for our guest for a multitude of reasons. For those of you who are just tuning in for the first time, which probably is no one, but just to be on the safe side, for those tuning in for the very first time, if you have not heard, I am a native of the great state of Wyoming, and so I'm super excited to have on the show today the athletic director from the University of Wyoming, Tom Berman. Tom, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful, Frances. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on. It's such an exciting, I have to say, I'm almost a little embarrassed to say that you're my first actual Wyoming guest on the show. Like, I don't know what's taken me so long to get somebody on the show. So you were the first. So
I appreciate that, but you need to expand the offering and have a few more cowboys and cowgirls.
I think I did ask somebody if I could get the governor on. I thought it would be interesting to have the governor on, and I think that went off a cliff like Buffalo. But I'm so happy to have you on, and for those of you in the audience right before we went to turn on the show tonight, of course, what were we talking about? What all Wyoming people talk about when they get together, first and foremost, the weather, because I had to know how the weather was in Wyoming, and because, as all people know, the springtime weather in Wyoming can be very volatile, and so I wanted to find out from Tom how things were looking there in Laramie today, and he was saying it's pretty typical Wyoming weather. Would you say, Tom?
It is. It's actually maybe a little bit better than normal today. Today's pretty nice, but we've had a windy stretch here, and I'm ready for summer and spring to get here.
Man,
can't get here soon enough.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Here in D.C., we have had probably what I consider to be the longest, most cold, blah winter since forever. I feel like we're in a perpetual episode of Game of Thrones here. It's so cold, it's so icky, and we're not tough. We're not tough out here. Like, it's going to be 70 degrees here tomorrow, and I don't think it can come soon enough. Judging by my lack of tan, this is not typical. Normally, this time of year, I'm in full-on, Miami Vice bronzer mode, and we're not there yet. So I'm a little disappointed. I do appreciate, Tom, that you dressed up for me today. I was totally expecting total sports gear. You got in a suit today. I feel honored.
Well, and we had a lot going on today. So today's signing day in basketball, and I had a board of trustee meeting early in the morning. So, but I wore the coat and tie for you.
Oh, wow. I feel very special. So you touched on a little bit, for those that really just have not had insight into the life of what an athletic director does, give us an idea of a day in the life of an athletic director.
Well, I will do my best. You told me you were going to ask me that question, so I wrote some notes down. I'll try not to.
I'm glad.
But I guess I would start up by saying a day in the life of an AD is very difficult to plan because think of it this way. You're running in my case, a $38 million business with 160 employees, and it's highly volatile due to politics and donors and emotions and 400 student athletes between 17 and 22. So there's all kinds of things that come at you.
Right.
But example, today I started off with a 7:30 a.m. Board of Trustees meeting to talk about some contract negotiations we were going through. That was a short meeting, but productive. Then I had a meeting with a foundation rep, and we talked about some of our foundation investments and how we may be able to drive more revenue from our reserves and our investments and make sure we're getting everything we can out of the dollars that are sitting in the foundation. Right. We talked about some fundraising initiatives. Obviously, in this business, you never stop raising dollars. There's never there's never a day when you go, oh, wow, we're in good shape financially, because there's
Right.
always more expenses coming at you.
Right.
I had a conference call, not a conference call, but I had a conversation with the Mountain West Conference today to talk about football scheduling, game times, television challenges,
Right.
where we stand for this fall. Today, as I briefly mentioned, is signing day for many sports.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a little update on men's basketball signing day. We've got a lot of turnover in our men's basketball program this year, so we got to hit a home run today and in the next few weeks. Student conversation with a coach who she had run across some personal issues, and we just had to work through that, make sure we're taking care of the young lady.
Right.
Donor meetings in Denver. I scheduled a couple meetings for tomorrow.
Right.
And then I'm going, as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to go to a campus event regarding inclusivity and diversity on campus. So that'll make up my day for the most part.
I didn't hear anywhere in there about eating or going to the bathroom or, sitting still. So hopefully those things happen in your day.
I never sit still. I'm wound pretty tight. So sitting still rarely happens. All the other stuff happens. I don't miss meals and I don't miss the other part.
Yeah, I don't, it's always bewildered me, people that can go their entire day without eating lunch or breakfast. Like, I would be the most miserable human being on the planet to deal with if I didn't get fed throughout the day. Like, I don't know how people can go from the start of the day to the end of the day and not eat a thing. Like, I don't know how people do that. There's some sort of like robo machine. I can't. I have to eat. No matter how busy I am, there has to be food put in front of me at some point in the day.
I can go without it. So
absolutely, like, I don't know how people function, but what comes to mind when I think about what's going on at UW? I mean, when I left UW back in 2002, when I drive on campus today, there has been just from an aesthetic point of view, there's been just a tremendous amount of change, but also so much behind the scenes too with what's going on from an athletics perspective at the university. Kind of talk about that evolution, not particularly from when I left to the present, but what's been happening as of late and the changes there at the university.
Well, as you mentioned, the number is actually over $1 billion in capital construction has occurred on this campus, and the campus is transformed. It's
right.
a very different place than it was when you were here.
Yes.
And that wasn't that long ago.
Right.
But in athletics in particular, we are just finishing what we call the McMurray High Altitude Performance Center, which is a $44 million world-class training facility with the mind of not just training them as student athletes, but also training them as people. So we have an incredibly large academic unit. We have an amazing training area that has got all kinds of student athlete well-being focus areas in it, not just the physical part of it. And then we've got a brand new football locker room. We've got meeting rooms. We've got a unbelievable team meeting space, which we've never had before.
Right.
It all sits in the north end zone of our stadium, and that'll open this summer. We've already gained some access to it. 14,000 square foot weight rooms designed specifically for football. So right. It is a facility that looks like you're on an ACC, a Big Ten campus, but you're in Laramie, Wyoming, and you're in the Mountain West Conference. So it's going to be a great recruiting asset for all of our programs, but in particular football.
Right. I think one of the, I've been to college campuses from coast to coast, and yeah, I'm clearly, for the home team, but I think one of the unique aspects that Laramie and the University of Wyoming has that no other school, and you can quote me on this, has, is that you can literally be at War Memorial and walk like 20 minutes and you're on the campus, or you're at a restaurant, or you're at the fraternity or sorority houses. Like, it's very much a community. It's all very condensed. It has a homey feel. But if you want to get away from it all, you can be out in the mountains in a matter of seconds. And I just think that's a unique thing that only the University of Wyoming can really truly say, because CSU definitely can't, because Fort Collins has completely blown up over the years. And who would want to go there anyway? But I think that's something, I mean, why would you want to? but I think Laramie just has just such a unique thing that other schools don't have. But what has all of this changed? I mean, this is a tremendous amount of change for Little Laramie, Wyoming. What has all of this change meant for the university as a whole and Laramie as a community?
Well, I think there's more pride in the university today than there maybe was 15 years ago. I mean, anytime you invest in your institution, and the state has invested a lot of money, private money has come into the university that wasn't here before, and it builds pride. It builds a sense of this is our university, and we are going to support it, and we're looking for great things from it. We've raised the bar. The expectations at times, I think, in the mid 2000s were low, and they were low because we hadn't performed, and not just in athletics, but across the board. And those things are changing today, and that's a really exciting thing. But we like to pride ourselves on this is the greatest college town in America. I mean, it is the ultimate college experience. If you want something different, it's not the place for you.
Right. No, I mean, I went to several schools and I have to tell, I mean, obviously, yes, this is my home state, but I mean, it truly was the college experience, the bars, the sorority and fraternity life, the sports life. I mean, it was truly the true collegiate experience, the dorms, the classes. I had the unique experience when I was at UW that a couple of my professors actually grew up with my dad. And so it was, where can somebody go to a major university and they see your last name on a roster and they're like, oh, I went to school with your dad. I mean, that's a unique experience that a lot of people don't have, but I felt incredibly safe at the University of Wyoming. I thought it was a great experience all around. And it really does have some of the best programs in the country. So obviously I'm very biased, but I think UW has been a little bit of a sleeper school for a long time, and I think the country is starting to find out that it's a really great thing. And I think that's due in part to a lot of the efforts that you guys are doing there in the athletic department. How has the change and the construction and the growth within the athletic department changed recruiting, for better, for worse, or whatever?
Dramatically. I mean, the facilities have had an impact, there's no doubt, but as you reference, the Josh Allen effect is having an enormous impact on football.
Yes.
And it is dramatically changing our brand. I mean, we did an assessment with a marketing firm called Joyce Julius that they came in and took a snapshot from August to after the bowl game and gave us a valuation of just Wyoming football.
Yeah. And
they came back to us and said it was nearly $50 million in exposure.
Yeah.
And now we're doing the same thing from the end of the bowl game all the way through the draft.
Yes.
And I think it will be significantly more than $50 million.
Yeah.
Right now, if you turn on ESPN, Josh is on it.
Every day.
Yeah. So it's the brand has grown,
right,
and its visibility has changed dramatically, and now it's up to us to capitalize on it and keep growing.
Right. And so, yeah, absolutely. Josh Allen is definitely top of mind. Besides the visibility factor and the dollars, what internally, amongst the teams, the coaching staff, the players, not just for football, but across the board, how has the fact that he has done so well and has been molded, I think, brilliantly at Wyoming to take the next leap, what has that done for morale and thought and conversation internally amongst football and all of the programs there?
It's a great question, but it's changed all of our student athletes' belief system.
Right.
And what I mean by that is, and it started a few years before Josh. He's kind of been the pinnacle of it. But if you go back to Larry Nance, getting a first-round draft pick of the Lakers, having a really good start to his NBA career, now playing alongside of LeBron James.
Yeah.
Bryce Meredith, another Cheyenne person who's competed in 2 NCAA championships, one in Madison Square Garden, finished second twice in college wrestling. It has just changed the expectation level.
Right.
I mean, Bryce did a video tribute during the NCAA championships this year called Thank You.
Mm-hmm.
And over 200,000 people viewed it in like 8 hours. It was absurd. I mean, it just went crazy. And I think I read the other day that now 2 million people have looked at this video piece. And basically all Josh is saying, thank you to wrestling for Bryce, for
Right.
what it did for him and how
Right.
it made him a man and built character. And but the point is, all these athletes are raising the bar, and we keep pushing it higher. And
Right.
now we just got to keep pushing and keep building great people, not just great athletes.
Right. And what some people may not know is, Bryce, wrestlers, especially collegiate wrestlers, it's not very often that they get all that much exposure. And he was able to, through his personal brand, amount a great deal of exposure. And if I'm correct, he's actually landed himself a couple of very well placed endorsement deals. And which for a forgive me, a collegiate wrestler, that's almost unheard of. I mean, the only other person I know of, and correct me if I'm wrong, especially from Wyoming, and is John Gadina, is really the only last person I can think of from wrestling that got that kind of those. And John was not even anywhere close to what Bryce is getting, but all of these things yield to raise the boat as far as Wyoming athletics is concerned. And so it's a great thing all around. Now, what most people out there probably don't realize, or everyone outside of Wyoming, I should say, is you have the pleasure of being the athletic director in a state that has no professional sports, and this is the only major university. So that's a very unique thing. What is that like when you get together with other athletic directors, and you're kind of like the athletic director of the pro team in the state of Wyoming? What is that experience like encounter to, say, the athletic director at Alabama, where they have other things going on in their region? What is that experience like for you?
Well, it's Wyoming is unique because you're the only 4-year school in the state. There's no professional sports.
Right.
I don't think others realize the microscope and the importance of the Wyoming Cowboys to the people of Wyoming.
Right.
Until you've been here.
Yeah.
I mean, you compared it to Alabama. Alabama is probably more similar to Wyoming than a lot of people think,
Right.
because
Yes.
Alabama is the
You're
Crimson
right.
Tide are the focus of the whole Southeast.
Yes.
But in a state like Colorado,
Yeah.
Fort Collins, as you referenced, is 45 miles, 60 miles to the south of us.
Right.
And they're competing with 4 professional sports, 5 professional sports teams, 3 major universities, multiple Division II schools,
Right.
And an outdoor recreation entertainment space that's significant.
Right.
So the good is we're the only show in town.
Right.
The bad is we're the only show in town. So when we screw up,
Right.
it's a much bigger deal. I've had ADs say to me, why are these people all over you about this kid getting a DUI or something,
Right.
for example? And the answer is because it's all they got.
Right. Right.
And it's real.
It is. And what a lot of people who are outside of Wyoming, if they've never been to Laramie, what they don't realize is, UW is the only game in town, so to speak, but Laramie is a very small community. It's a very close-knit community. So if one of your players gets into an altercation or an incident, literally everybody in town knows about it before you've even woken up the next morning. And so that's, unlike the AD at Alabama, if one of his athletes gets into something, it takes a little bit for that news to travel. In Laramie, it's like wildfire. It spreads very, very quickly. And so I would almost dare to say that you, as the AD of a school like Wyoming, you have to have your crisis communication and your strategy hat on all the time. Am I correct?
Correct. And we talk about it all the time. And the one thing my philosophy is this, and it's partially due to where we are, that we are going to be absolutely transparent. We're not going to hold any information.
Right.
We are going to release it immediately. And even if that is inappropriate at times, we'll take the bullets when they come.
Right.
We can't keep anything quiet because somebody is our neighbor who's going to be sitting next to the Cheyenne newspaper at coffee, and it's going to be to the governor's office before noon.
Right. I tell people all the time, first of all, no one here ever believes that I'm from Wyoming when I tell them that I'm from Wyoming, mostly because I think people don't know what Wyoming people should be. You know,
Right.
people love to quickly categorize people, and nobody really knows what a Wyomingite should be or look like or do or talk like. But we have I always tell people all the time, we're so blessed to be from a small state, small communities, because we truly know how to share gossip, handle gossip, deal with gossip. Like, we knew how to deal with social media crisis before social media existed, because when you grow up in a small town, it's just like being on social media. You better know how to handle something that's coming down the pike, because that's right, you could be sitting next to somebody in a cafe and the news has spread before noon about what's going on in your personal life. So I take it a blessing being from a small state, because you get a tough skin and you learn how to deal with crises very, very quickly. I want to get back to Josh Allen for a second, because this is something I think that is so fascinating. The Josh Allen effect, of course, has had an impact on visibility and reach for the University of Wyoming. What has it done for recruiting? How has the dialogue changed amongst all sports, not just football? Because this is recruiting season. We're full on in recruiting season. How is the Josh Allen effect that you've heard anecdotally from the coaches? How has that changed the dialogue?
Well, I think two major areas of focus. One is, maybe a few years ago, we would have had to explain to them who Wyoming is. Right. Well, now most 17-year-old football players know Wyoming is where Josh Allen played. That's right. What they know. Right. And they've seen highlights, and they kind of have a feel for what it is. And the fact that his junior year, we played in the Mountain West Championship game against Boise. It was a great game, against San Diego State. It was a great game. That all was part of building this program.
Right.
But so now they know who it is. Right. But they also, the story is, come to Laramie. We have this world-class training facility now. We have a passionate fan base.
Right.
We have an excellent university. And you can become the best you can be as an athlete and a student. Look at Josh. He graduated. He's finished up. He is going to be likely the first pick in the NFL draft. That's a pretty good thing to point to. And if you can't, as Coach Bull likes to say, if you can't see it, if you can't see it, you can't seize it.
Right.
And we see it now, and we see it every day, and that is championships and NFL players.
And is there any pressure or any, because once you hit the top, it's easier getting to the top than maintaining the top. Is there any kind of anxiety or angst around developing the next Josh Allen, so that we can keep having this message point?
Absolutely. Really, the focus isn't how do we get the next Josh Allen. How do we become champions?
Right.
If we can become a team that competes for the Mountain West Championship every year, we become the next Boise State.
Right.
We're going to have Josh Allens, because you can't get there without players like him. Now, we have another top pick. That doesn't really matter. But as long as we have lots of great NFL caliber players, we're going to be a landing spot for many young men who have a dream of playing in the NFL and believe they can. And so, yes, there's great pressure, and much of that pressure, the coaches are going full bore to try to get the best, train the best, develop the best, and we're going full bore to try to get the resources to build great facilities, put them in a position to be successful, and keep our great coaching staff.
Well, and I think you guys are doing a great job. And one thing that a lot of people probably don't look at, but I do because this is my work, a lot of people don't realize is that recruiting is a couple of different things. It's the coaches and scouts going out there and meeting with the kids. But we're now living in a day and age where recruiting is done via social media too. And the look and the feel and the overall brand that the university builds around these recruits. If those of you who are big on Twitter or other platforms, you probably have seen football players, basketball players, other sports too, recruits are starting to post that they're so honored that they got an offer from XYZ school, and suddenly there's pictures of this player in the school uniform, lots of different pictures. This is part of the battle, the recruitment battle that we're waging. It's schools are now not only having to have coaches that can do the dance and do well in the living room with mom and dad and the player, but the battle is being waged on social media as well, before the athletes gets in the door, after they get into the door, and while they're playing at the school. I think Wyoming has done as good of any, SEC or ACC school that I've seen as, building content around these players and giving these players a platform for their content. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that has helped you guys?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for the compliment, because we're doing it with a very small staff.
Yep.
I mean, if you compare what we have as far as, if you look at the social media staff at an ACC school or an SEC school, it might be up to 10 people.
Right.
We have one full-time person,
right,
multiple,
right,
some people that kind of focus on it as well.
right.
But our coaches are trying to learn it. And I do think we've been able to manage. We have an excellent team kind of coaching the coaches how to run their own social media platforms,
right,
and how to work with our student athletes. But you're right. It is social media is a key element in recruiting. And if you aren't successful at it, you've got to overcome it, because those young people are evaluating you based on that, whether it's what kind of content you produce, how you look, what you say. They're evaluating you every time they turn on their social media platform. So you have to have your A game. Right. But we work hard to educate our coaches. Internally, we work hard to educate our student athletes. We want them to have a personal brand,
right,
but we also want them to understand they represent us.
Right.
And they have to be adults and mature and thoughtful. And that same message goes to our coaching staff.
Right.
Because you can make a mistake, as you know, on social media that you can't overcome. It's
right.
there forever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as we saw, last week or the week before, right after the NCAA tournament, it became very viral very quickly. It's on my social media feeds. One of the players from Villanova, a post that he posted 7 years ago got recycled, and it was extremely unflattering, and it was terrible. And it always, from a professional standpoint, it always boggles the mind of a program the size of Villanova, how someone was not looking at the account of this young man and getting rid of these unflattering posts, because he had to shut everything down. He had one of the biggest nights of his collegiate career, and the next morning he's playing damage control on his social media because of something he posted 7 years ago when he was probably 11 years old, maybe. And so, because you live and breathe this every day, this is no longer a game. This is no longer an option. Coaches, players, even administrators like yourself, you have to be so careful, because people are out there doing these sorts of things. And it only takes once to become a cautionary tale. Like you said just a few moments ago, I mean, you can't undo it. The social media gods are never kind when they find something that's unflattering at a key moment in your life or your career. And it's very important. I'm glad to hear that the university is doing a lot to make sure that people are managing this stuff. But we're talking about recruiting of students, but also the recruiting game of coaches and administrative staff is also getting extremely competitive. I've been talked to and hired by several coaches who are looking to expand their content and expand their reach. From an athletic director standpoint, what are you looking for when you're on the search committee for a head coach or an assistant coach of whatever sport? What are you looking for in the social media of a coach who is wanting to join your program?
I will review their social media. I look at it. I dig into it. I hate to say it. I look to see what they liked, what they retweeted, which I feel foolish at times. I feel like I'm snooping, but they represent me, so I got to make sure I understand what they're doing.
Right.
And if there was something I didn't like, I may ask them during the interview process about it, see how they respond. But if you don't know, I guess I would say this. In my case, like, I use social media, but I'm not a social media guru by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
You have to be true to yourself.
Right.
And you have to be what you are. Coach Bowl, for example, He's not really interested in social media.
Right.
He has a staff member that supports him and tries to get him more engaged in it. But that's just not his stick. So
Right.
my answer to him would be, don't do it then.
Right.
Because if you're not really interested in it, don't do it. Be true to yourself. And also, one thing I've seen a few times is where people are extremely engaging and funny on their social media side, but in real life, they're not.
Right.
And,
Yes.
again, I would be who you are. And
Right.
if that's your personality, then just retweet information and just use it to gather news. I mean, I use Twitter all the time, and
Right.
it is basically my news gathering source.
Right.
I read it religiously.
Right.
I don't tweet a lot. I tweet occasionally, but on the other hand, Facebook, it's more personal to me. Facebook's
Right.
more about my family and
Right.
more personal issues. I have an Instagram account. I never use it because it makes me nervous.
It makes you nervous?
I don't
It's
understand it.
pictures.
Oh, no. I
It's
just
just
leave it alone.
pictures.
I know. I just don't. I'm worried I'll put the wrong picture in there.
Well, I mean, good night. One platform that you haven't mentioned, but I think is so, I think it's kind of the sleeper of the sports world is LinkedIn. I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn, obviously, because I'm on the business side, but I've helped so many athletes at all levels kind of flesh out their LinkedIn account to get, into sports, to get a sports administrative job. How much do you, when you're on a search committee, how much do you dig into LinkedIn or look at LinkedIn when it comes to who you're employing or about to employ?
We'll review it just like we would their other social media stuff. I wouldn't say that we spend more time on LinkedIn than we do on the other platforms, but we have staff members who have LinkedIn accounts, and we'll go and review their information, take a look at it. But I wouldn't say that we use it. We view it as more or less important than any of the others. I think, obviously, for job searching perspective, it's valuable. I can gather a lot of information about a candidate on LinkedIn that I can't get on their other social media platforms. But to me, I view LinkedIn as a way to promote, whereas I view the other platforms as a way to promote but also communicate. I mean, like on a daily basis.
Right.
LinkedIn to me is a different tool, but maybe it's because I don't use it as well as I should.
Right. Well, because I found it very interesting that you were like, that you didn't say inform about anything. You're like promote and that, but not inform. And it's interesting. I had one coach who was afraid to post, articles or blogs to LinkedIn because he felt that it would be too self-promotional. And I don't feel that way at all. Like, do you actually read articles or any content that people are posting across, like educational content that people are posting across the board?
If I have reviewed a couple LinkedIn accounts on coaches that I have looked at, and they have posted information, and I would have read it just to make sure that there was nothing in there and it was properly written, etc. But I don't routinely check LinkedIn enough to look at, for example, what our current coaches are doing.
Right.
LinkedIn.
But you've definitely had some coaches, Coach Pujols is one person that immediately comes to mind. You've had some coaches there at UW that have definitely utilized social media to its fullest extent to kind of build out their persona of who they are. My personal feeling when it comes to coaching is all the social media in the world is great, but coaching is still one of those career fields where it's really about the relationships that you have in person and what people know about you behind the scenes. But Coach Pujols is somebody that really kind of took the bull by the horns, so to speak, about Twitter, especially his Twitter platform. Do you think that had any role in him reaching his next position? Where is that? North Alabama?
Yep. Yeah. It surely doesn't hurt him. I mean, because he did it well.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's like anything, if you do it, you better do it well.
Right.
And he did it well, and he was represented himself in a fashion that if I was looking for a head coach, he would have caught my eye. So, I think, and I think all coaches, if they're going to do this, they should get some help. They're really going to get after it, whether it's you or someone internal. But make sure you've got multiple eyes looking at what you're going to send out there.
Yes.
because it's hard to pull things back. And we all make mistakes, and there's nothing wrong with, I mean, obviously there's certain mistakes that are different than others, but you can make a mistake and justify it, but at least know about it.
Right. Well, that I think especially for coaches, because I think coaches really, and I'm sure this extends to ADs as well, as coaches just aren't under the gun for the players. They were, when you work at like a company, you have your boss that you report to, and there you go. But as a coach, I mean, you have so many bosses, directly and indirectly. You got the AD, you've got alumni, you've got parents, you've got media. You have so many different people who you have to kind of answer to. I use that loosely, on a daily basis, that I think a lot of coaches are just so paralyzed that they don't want to put themselves out there, because you say one false thing and you have all of these various audiences that you have to answer to. But if you work with someone like me or somebody with your internal staff, you kind of get over that, and you really can put out interesting content. I had one coach, I'd love your opinion on this. I had one assistant coach to me say that he was reluctant to actually create his own content, because an assistant coach, you don't want to look too much like a thought leader, because you don't want to outshine the head coach. And I found that to be so bizarre. Like, what are your thoughts on it? Because as an employee, I'm still going to post my thought leadership content. I'm not outshining my boss. I'm showing my competence in my vertical. What do you think about that? I was really like, I didn't know what to say to that.
Every coaching staff has a different culture, but there is a lot of cultures in football and men's basketball that if you're an assistant coach, you're behind the scenes.
Right.
Your job isn't to be out front. Your job is not to be out looking for your next gig. Your job is to be supporting me or him or her. And if you're out creating content and spending time, some head coaches may view that as you're trying to get a job, and I need you to be focused on helping us win. And if we win, you'll get a job.
Right.
That's short-sighted, and that's not the way to manage. But it's the culture often of coaches. I mean, the one downfall many head coaches have is they're incredibly insecure, paranoid. Because and a part of it is justifiable. Their livelihood is judged every day in front of everyone else. Wins and losses. There aren't many businesses that are that way.
No. I mean, most people don't know each other's failings and successes on a given basis. For coaches, it's literally there on a sheet that's published for everyone around the world to see, your wins and losses. It's an incredibly interesting career field, and it has a lot of minds, but coaches are understanding that they have to develop their own brand if they want to get ahead in their career, if they want to get ahead in recruiting, because recruiting is your ability to recruit as a college coach really ties into your ability to move up the ladder. You got to be able to recruit, you got to be able to coach, and how do you talk about that so that you can move up the ladder if you're not allowed to create content? It's a very interesting, bizarre conundrum that I think is very unique to the coaching profession.
I would say to the assistant coach who said that to you, he or she should go into the head coach and just have a conversation about it. And generally, if you time that appropriately and you present it the right way, they're going to say, fine, go do what you need to do. And then once they say fine, it's hard for them to take it back.
Yeah, once you've had that conversation, the juice is loose here. You can't go back. You can't go back from that. Setting aside from the coaches for a second, getting back to the student athletes. Obviously, there's been a lot in the news lately, a lot of conversation lately about the NCAA and its paying athletes, not paying athletes. We're not going to get down that road, but What are conversations that you guys are having internally with the athletes? Because some of them do want to grow their personal brand, but because of NCAA, regulations, they can't sell ads to a YouTube channel and keep their athletic scholarship. They can't, have those two. What are conversations that you guys are having internally as coaches or with the students themselves about how to balance this?
Yeah. Well, we're having real, I guess, just being absolutely transparent with them and explaining to them where the situation sits today, what the conversations are nationally regarding their image and likeness, and is there an opportunity coming for them to monetize it? What are the perils with that if that comes? And there are some.
Yeah.
And do I really believe there's a significant market for them? I think there is for Josh.
Right.
But the vast majority of athletes that have ever come through here, I think there is very little market for their image and likeness.
Right.
But that doesn't mean they shouldn't be given the right to at least explore it. And I think there'll come a day in the NCAA when that flexibility will be given to them. I don't know if it'll be if the handcuffs will be completely off. I think there will always be some controls, because it could really get out of control, especially as you go to the real passionate fan bases in Ohio or Michigan or Alabama, where they will, if they think it helps keep a kid from leaving early or get a kid, they're going to pay him a ridiculous amount of money. So there's going to be some handcuffs, some limitations at some point. But we have conversations, even to the point of recently I sat down with a couple of our basketball players. I started to explain to them, and I'm going to actually show them the financials.
Right.
At the end of the day, we're spending more on them than what they're bringing in by 3x.
Right.
So it's not all as lucrative as they think it is. I mean, most universities are operating in the red.
Right.
A handful, maybe 20, operate in the black.
Right. And I think a lot of people, is it safe to say that most universities, they're teetering on breaking even. And I think it goes back to the comment you made earlier, is that fundraising can never stop for athletics. Fundraising never can stop for that very purpose, that most organizations are breaking even, if that. And where a lot of people turn their attention, I think, is the organization of the NCAA itself. And people are wanting to know where the money goes there at that level. I think most collegiate programs can open up their books and show where the money is going. But I think where a lot of people are turning, kind of an awkward eye is, what's the NCAA doing with this money, and how is that trickling down to athletes across all sports? And I think that question is going to have to be answered eventually. I don't think the NCAA forever is going to be able to be like, we don't have to answer these questions. But it's good that you at the collegiate level, at the university level, are saying to these kids, here, let me show you just how much, like, your shoes, all the apparel you get, the buses you ride in, the food that you get to eat, all of that comes out, because I think a lot of people are unaware of where the dollars and cents are. But I was thinking about the NCAA, and you mentioned basketball. The NBA has certainly, I think, been more innovative than other sports about trying to find a way to balance kids that want to come out of college and for whatever reason may need to go back. What do you have an opinion about what the NBA is proposing about allowing kids to step out, and if they don't go as high in the draft or don't get drafted, they can come back and go back to school? What kind of havoc would that wreak for a university, if any?
Well, it would be a challenge to manage if you kept the rules the same as they are. We have right now, men's basketball has 13 scholarships. So if our best player this year, Justin James, he's announced he's going to explore, but he's not going to sign with an agent.
Right.
So basically what that means is if JJ determines that he's not going to get drafted, he's going to come back, and there'll be no harm, no foul.
Right.
But if he went out and signed with an agent and took benefits and then wanted to come back, that's just counter to the collegiate model.
Right.
And then the other part of it is the draft isn't till summertime.
Right.
So do we hold his scholarship, or are we allowed to add a 14th at Wyoming. That isn't fair to the schools who are 13.
Right.
So it's not impossible. It's just cumbersome.
Right.
My personal view is I'm anti the one and dones.
Right.
We either you go to college for a period of time like you do in baseball, which is 3 years, or football, which is 3 years from the time you leave, or you don't go at all. And I don't have an issue with them not coming to college. If if the best players in high school want to go straight to the league, more power to them. But if you're going to come, I want you to actually experience the educational process.
Right.
And 1 year, if you know you're coming out, you go to class in the fall.
Right.
The spring semester is irrelevant.
Right. Right. Well, and the other issue, and actually the team and I were talking about this before we went live, like, the other issue I have with allowing players to come out and go back in is from a recruiting standpoint. If you got a guy that goes out, this is the same exact time that the coaches are out there recruiting. So are they recruiting to fill the spot, or are they recruiting for something else? I mean, that if I was a head coach, I'd want to pull my hair out, because you're dealing with so much unknown. And if you're a team like, Kentucky or Florida or Villanova, and you've got multiple guys that are declaring for the draft, how are you recruiting? I just feel it would be very, very challenging for at the collegiate level for teams to be able to manage that.
You are spot on, and I can give you one piece of advice. Don't pull your hair out.
I often have.
It's not a good idea.
I've often thought about just like going full Dolly Parton and just wearing wigs all the time, so I don't have to do my hair. I think we're gonna hold on that. But I mean, you do the bald thing well. You're sporting it like a champ.
All right. Well, I'm doing my best. There's not much there.
Hey. There are some people with some severely misshaped heads who cannot be bald, and you are not one of those people. So if you need a gold star on the day, there you go. There you go. So personally, we know that you're that Twitter is like your main social media game. That's where you hang out. You're comfortable with Twitter.
Yep.
Who do you think, with the few minutes that we have left here, who do you think is generating the best content right now? Who is somebody that you really follow and you find what they're putting out there to be interesting and enjoyable?
That's an interesting question, because I like quick stuff. So I don't really like, if someone does great video, I'm probably less likely to watch it than most people, because I'm kind of, I don't want to make light of this, but I'm kind of ADD. I got to get going. So I like quick stuff, quick information. I'm a big New York Yankee fan, and so I follow Didi Gregorius, who's their shortstop. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't post anything, but he uses emojis.
Right.
And I like to try to figure out what he's saying with his emojis. And most of the time, it just makes me laugh.
Right.
But I find him very amusing. I think LeBron does a great job with his social media stuff, but I don't follow a lot of stars. I'm basically a news guy, a sports guy.
Right.
I follow I follow many of our student athletes.
Right.
So I'm probably not the right person to ask, but I do know, based on what we find with our social media, if you got quality photographs, quality video, that seems to resonate with people, and they really enjoy it. I mean, the retweets, the additional information we get from that is really positive. So I guess that's about all I can add to this discussion.
Side note on the Yankees for a second. What is your thought about how the Yankees handled Aaron Judge and his little slump that he was suffering through last summer? I mean, New York fans are just absolutely brutal, but he was scorching hot, and then it was like Buffalo off a cliff for a while. By the end of the season, he finally came around, but as a Yankees fan, what did you make of that? And I mean, being up in New York City, watching games from time to time, New York fans are just brutal, that poor guy. But what was your thoughts on, it was just meteoric rise, and then just the bottom fell out all of a sudden. What was your thoughts on that as a fan?
Well, I was worried last year, and now this year, it sounds like he may have had a shoulder injury and didn't tell anybody. Whether that's true or just cover, who knows. But he's playing better this year. He's hitting better. He's striking out less. And he seems like the kind of guy that you want to root for.
Yeah.
I hope Yankee fans will be patient. Right now, I feel bad for Giancarlo Stanton because he's a mess and they're paying him a lot of money and he was going to be the savior.
Yep.
And he's struggling, but
Yep.
he's a pro. He'll figure it out. But yeah, no, I felt bad for Aaron last year because, All-Star break, he was the hottest thing in the world. And I mean, after that, he was a mess.
I mean, it was I was rooting for him too. And I'm not even a Yankees fan. I was really rooting for him and he was doing so well. And then it was just like, pfft. And I was, I was doing a lot of business up in New York City at the time. So I was able to catch a few of the games while I was in town. And I'm like, did this kid have like one of those Freaky Friday situations where he changed bodies with somebody else? I'm like, what happened to him? Where did he go? But I'm glad to see that, that he was able to, pull it up at the end of the season and hopefully, he performs well this season. But yeah, you're right. I don't think your Yankees are going to do as well this season as you would like them to. That's just my prediction. Not being a hater, I'm just saying.
It's a little early and they haven't started well, but no matter how you start, it's all how you finish.
That's true. It is about how you finish. Getting back to social media really quick, what is one social media trend that you wish would stop, that just irritates you and you just wish it would stop?
I don't even know if this falls under that category, but I find it disappointing that in our society,
yes,
the fake news phenomenon, people actually believe the garbage that's out there, especially on Facebook. Yeah. I mean, I read some of these things that are posted on Facebook and even occasionally on Twitter.
Right.
And I want to say, are there people that actually believe this?
Yes.
And the sad part is the answer is yes.
Yeah.
So I think there was a way to stop that because it's just educating people in a fashion that's inappropriate because they believe it and they get upset about it. Like, you don't have to get upset about this. It's not real.
Right. Well, unfortunately, there are people out there that do think it's real. And Mark Zuckerberg is actually up on Capitol Hill right now trying to explain himself. And because this is one of the challenging things about social media is it doesn't matter if somebody, if I wanted to go on a, Tom Berman smear campaign on social media, I could easily do that. And there would be, people don't fact check to see who am I? Am I actually a reputable source or am I, somebody, tweeting from, their basement somewhere. And that's the unfortunate thing about social media is you really do have to make sure that somebody is sending you something from a viable source. And, people are making mock accounts and you think it's coming from a reputable source, but if you look a little bit closer, it's actually a mock account. And I mean, this is causing, right here in DC, someone posted fake news and somebody shot up a restaurant. I mean, it's these things, this is very, very real. And my opinion is on college campuses, they should be teaching courses about how to spot fake news and what to do if you're part of an attack that's fake news. Because I think this is a real thing that we are going to have to deal with moving forward. It's very scary, but it's very real. And
so what trend would you like to see eliminated or curtailed?
Viewers of the show know very well my feeling about dick pics and people putting those out there. I think I don't know if this is just because I'm becoming an old lady and bitter with the world, but people need to put their clothes on. I'm so tired of getting on every social media and every young woman is naked. I'm like, do these women not ever expect to have to get a job someday? Yeah. Put your clothes on. Like, you don't need to be naked in every picture. Like, I just want to go to every college campus across the country and say, if he doesn't like you with your clothes on, he's not worth your time. Put your clothes on.
We work hard to educate our kids, that they're even simple things like being at a party holding a red cup, whether there's Diet Coke in there or not.
Right.
An image is with you forever if you put that on your social media and it looks like you were drinking. And if at the time you were under 21, somebody could use that against you.
Right.
Because if they bring it to me, I got to deal with it.
Well, and, I think especially at the collegiate level, I think young men and women are not savvy enough to understand that people will exercise their moral compass whenever they want to. And yeah, you might have Diet Coke in that solo cup, but it's still a solo cup, and that employer might all of a sudden decide that they have an issue with it and not offer you a job. And so it's just better to be safe than sorry, and because they get to exercise their moral compass whenever they want to, and you might have been doing nothing wrong, but you're guilt by association, and so it's just better to be on the safe side always, always.
Yep.
Well, Tom Berman, I appreciate you. Thank you for taking time out of your unbelievably busy schedule to talk with me today. I hope to be in Laramie very soon. I'll let you know when I'm in town so we can get together and grab some coffee. But thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Francis. Good luck. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And thank all of you for tuning in this week. Tune in next week, of course. Always want you to. Next week, super excited. My guest next week will be, you might know him as Scott Farkas from The Christmas Story. His real name is Zach Ward, and he's going to be on next week talking about movies and talking about his foray into the sports world. This will be very exciting. So definitely be sure to tune in. Also, tune in tomorrow through the end of the week. I'm going to be out in Vegas at the NFL Alumni Association meeting. So tune into my social media to catch all of the action from my activities there. But in the meantime, you can always join in the conversation for Let's Talk Personal on Twitter at LTP Brand Radio or on Instagram at Let's Talk Personal. And of course, you can always talk personal to me on Twitter at Your Firestarter or on Instagram at Firestarter CEO. Love you guys. See you next week. Have a good night.